and my job is to talk about the clinical audit and why and how it should be done. Well, truly speaking, you all are the people of science and have been practicing doing the scientific studies all throughout your life. So I'm not going to go into the details of how to do the clinical audit. So my job is really only to just rekindle the interest in this quality improvement process so that we embrace it wholeheartedly. And I have no disclosures to make. When we talk about doing any kind of a study, we must know about the existing in terms of some objective criteria, and then we tend to compare it with the known or expected outcomes, and then do some interventions to try and improve those lacunae that we have. So, in the scientific terminology, we see the corresponding areas are described as a descriptive study, observational study, or experimental study. And when this clinical research is done, the idea is basically to establish some sort of clinical standards to follow. And when these results or standards are applied on a larger scale on the healthcare delivery and the clinical application side, the corresponding studies are called as the survey audit or the experimental audits or experiments. So basically, the idea still remains the same, that we are trying to improve the overall patient care healthcare delivery and trying to optimize the use of resources. So scientifically speaking, audit is not equivalent to that of a research study, so to say, although both of them would be utilizing same kind of methodology in terms of design, procedure, or analysis and interpretation of data. The research actually is trying to create new knowledge or to add to the existing pool of knowledge, whereas through the audit, we are trying to examine the practice patterns that are there against the established or the desired norms. The audit is not also same as that of a survey. In the survey, we are just collecting data about practice patterns, whereas in an audit, those practice patterns are actually scrutinized against the established or the desired standards. So therefore, audit is scientifically different from a survey. The regular clinical audits have been included in the healthcare delivery models of several countries. In the UK, they were included about 3 decades back, and they have acknowledged it as the essential part of any good clinical governance. This is actually the stepping stone to a good clinical governance, because unless we do an audit, we don't know what are the deficiencies and how that can be improved. We as a country are still lagging behind quite a lot. Although we do regular financial audits, we are yet to take a step forward to doing the regular clinic audit in our healthcare delivery system. USI on its part has started recently the Collaborative Research Committee with the goal of facilitating the research and collaboration. And through the clinical audits, already 2 clinical audits have been started by the USI. These clinical audits are actually the first stepping stones to create the evidence-based suggestions, which are specific to our country and are region-specific. And therefore, through these recommendations, we are trying to give population-based perspective to our healthcare delivery. So the overall benefits to be gained through this clinical governance model of clinical audits is basically we are trying to reduce the burdens on our society. This can be in the financial terms or even in terms of specific clinical terms like the side effect of drugs or side effects of various surgeries. Even the benefits that we gain out of those drugs or surgeries can be studied. And when we dwell into these questions, we actually create new questions by going into it scientifically. And whatever we do, it is going to have a wider impact on our public health recommendations. And therefore, it is really very imperative that we include this clinical governance model in our healthcare delivery systems as well. So when we are doing a specific clinical audit, apart from the other larger goals of a clinical governance, when we plan the study, we are also creating more awareness on the subject under consideration, and therefore the participant and the OPIs tend to keep up to date with the evidence-based practice in that particular area of study. And simultaneously, we would be creating a culture of transparency, collaboration, and quality improvement. And therefore, whenever clinical audit is done, it is also simultaneously facilitating the professional development of all the participants. So therefore, there is all in all great good in doing clinical audit and the clinical governance. The clinical audit is not actually one-time activity. It is a continuous cycle. Once the study is done and the recommendations are given, they have to be implemented, and then we have to find out if there are any deficits in the implementation of the recommendations through that audit. So coming to how should we do a clinical audit, The initial most important step is obviously to design the protocol and plan it meticulously. The topic for the study can be anything, but one should really try to identify the problem area, and the problem areas generally come from the complaints that the patients, public, or even the healthcare providers may be making on a relatively more regular basis. So keep an eye on that. That can form a really good topic for a clinical audit. The idea is basically the whatever topic is chosen, it should have a clear potential for the improvement of the practice of the healthcare delivery, and also try and keep it aligned with the institutions or the nation's priority wherever feasible. As regards the framing question is concerned, I am not going into more details. The primary objective and the secondary objective can be assessed on the PICO or the SMART principle, and whatever the objective is chosen, the sample size, sampling method, study method, all those are interrelated, and these have to be meticulously chalked out according to whatever the primary objectives are. So once the protocol has been designed, one has to collect the data, and that the data collection can be done through any data entry package. The standard MS Excel sheets can be used, but for the large databases, we really need some kind of a logic-based application like this RedCap application, which is available free online. But again, for very large data sets, it becomes sometimes difficult. The USI on its part has recently started this database repository, which can help in the clinical audits. The two clinical audits that the USI has started recently are using the same database repository that has been created by the USI, and therefore, if anyone wants to do an audit, one can take help of USI, and USI would be happy to do it. In our country, we are guided by the CDSCO guidelines, which are available free online. And of course, for any study, including the clinical audit, even if we are collecting the retrospective data, the ethical approval must be taken before any kind of the patient data is collected. Then after that comes the execution of the study, and obviously the meticulous or effective execution would depend upon how the protocol has been designed. The more detailed it is, the more there is a clarity of design, methodology, and data collection, the easier it's going to be to execute the study. And just try and minimize the number of questions that one has to fill, because it reduces the workload and also reduces the strain on the resources. Then the analyze part of the study or the clinical audit is perhaps the easiest part to do, because whatever data is collected, the statistical methods can be used depending upon the what objective criteria are being collected. Finally comes the implementation stage of the clinical audit. And the clinical audit, this is unique to clinical audit because inherently the clinical audits are designed not to build the new knowledge, but to bring about the improvements or changes in the existing practice patterns. So really, if one is not implementing the recommendations of the audit, there is no fun in doing a clinical audit. After doing the study, there is a whole lot of steps which are important and go into completing the audit cycle. If the implementation is not getting feasible, then one has to see why we are not able to achieve it. Do we need some kind of more facilitation, or we create some kind of a benchmarking or accreditation process, or through the insurance companies we can increase the acceptance of the results of the audit cycle. So all those things can be seen. So finally, I would say that it's not sufficient to do the clinical audit itself. You are the prime factor in the successful completion and the implementation of any audit, because the data collection is going to start with you only, and it is going to end with you with the implementation of the results. So therefore, you are the prime factor. Please come forward and do clinical audit and be a part of the regular clinical governance model that we must accept in our day-to-day practice. So before I conclude, I would just give a brief overview how we have started the process of the clinical audit under USI. So antibiotic overuse is considered as one of the problematic areas, because despite the guidelines being there for a single dose prophylaxis, we continue to overuse the antibiotics, and therefore this high volume, high risk, high cost issue remains unsolved in our clinical practice, and therefore it is an important area of study which may have a major impact on our urological practices. There can be many such topics which one can suggest and choose from to do a clinical audit, and all of you are welcome to do so. So, based on the primary and the secondary objectives of our antibiotic audit, we decided that the best type of data that we would be able to collect would be from a prospective cross-sectional kind of a study, so that we are able to give good recommendations depending upon our objectives. So, based on the objectives, we finalized this data collection questionnaire, keeping in mind that the questions are kept to a bare minimum necessary, and the answers to each of these questions were kept closed-ended and totally unambiguous, so that there is no question in the mind of the investigator while filling the data, so that we are able to collect the good quality data the way we want it to. Before such questionnaire is finalized, the role of the peer review through the expert group consensus, and also the simultaneous planning of promoting the audit, so that more and more investigators are able to join in, and how we are actually going to accumulate data. So all these issues are very, very important for doing any clinical audit, and this is where the USI can chip in and give help in terms of how to go about doing the clinical audit. And you will listen about these steps of USI in subsequent talks as well. So as I said, the USI has also helped by creating this database repository by itself, and really the electronic format of data submission has been developed even for this antibiotic audit as well. And it is going to be a very easy process to fill in the data, and not much time consuming or resource heavy on the investigator. So this is my last slide, and I will conclude by saying that it may be difficult to change the habits and behaviors many of the times, but through this clinical audit process, we do start some levers in motion, and therefore gradually one would be able to achieve the larger goal of trying to improve the overall healthcare delivery system. So thank you, USI. Thank you.